The research vessel Whisper of Dawn came out of hyperspace at the edge of an unknown solar system. The ship was long and silver, built for exploration and science. Inside, the crew of 47 aliens worked at their stations. They had visited many worlds before. They had seen strange things, but nothing had prepared them for what they would find here. Commander stood at the center of the bridge. She was tall for a with pale blue skin and large eyes covered by thin, clear membranes. Her species had evolved on a calm world with gentle weather and soft light. They were scientists and explorers. They were not warriors. They had never needed to be. "Report," she said to her science officer. Floated toward her. He was like the rest of the crew, but older, with darker skin, and many scars from years of research on dangerous planets. His 4 tentacles moved nervously as he held up a data pad. "The third planet from the star," said. "It has life." This was not unusual. Many planets had life. Simple organisms, bacteria, maybe some plants. The universe was full of such things. "What kind of life?" asked. Was quiet for a moment. His membranes flickered over his eyes. This was a sign of fear among. "Intelligent life," he said. "A civilization, cities, machines, satellites in orbit." Felt her heart beat faster. First contact with a new species was rare. The Galactic Council had protocols for this. They would need to be careful, respectful, and peaceful. "What else do we know about the planet?" she asked. Looked at his data pad again. His tentacles were shaking now. "Commander," he said, "the planet is classified as a Class 12. The bridge went silent. Every stopped working. They all turned to look at. Was a planet where conditions were so dangerous that life should not exist. Class 12 was nearly the highest rating possible. It meant extreme danger from multiple sources. "That cannot be correct," said. "Check your readings." "I have checked them 3 times, replied. "The planet has constant tectonic activity, earthquakes, volcanoes. The atmosphere contains oxygen at toxic levels. The star provides intense radiation with no natural shielding. The water is slightly acidic and Commander," he paused. "The water falls from the sky, regularly, sometimes with electrical storms." Tried to understand this. Water falling from the sky. On her, water was found in underground pools. It was precious and rare. The idea of it falling from above was strange and frightening. "How can anything live there?" she asked. "I do not know," admitted. "But the sensors show 8 billion life signs. 8 billion intelligent beings living on a Class 12. Made a decision. They had come to explore. They had found something extraordinary. They could not simply leave. "Prepare a diplomatic shuttle," she ordered. "I will lead the first contact team myself." The shuttle descended through the atmosphere, watched through the window as clouds rushed past, real clouds made of water vapor. Below them she could see blue oceans and green landmasses. It looked beautiful. It looked peaceful. It was a lie. Her sensors told her the truth. The air outside would burn her lungs if she breathed it. The sunlight would damage her skin in minutes. The gravity was strong, pulling at her body with uncomfortable force. Everything about this world was trying to kill her. And yet as they descended lower, she saw cities, roads, vehicles moving along those roads, boats on the water, aircraft in the sky. The beings who lived here did not hide underground. They did not seal themselves in protective habitats. They lived openly, under the burning sun, breathing the poisonous air. The shuttle landed in an open field. Checked her environmental suit 3 times before stepping outside. Her team of 5 followed her, all of them nervous, all of them armed with defensive weapons. They did not have to wait long. 3 vehicles approached across the field. They were large, wheeled machines that kicked up dust as they moved. They stopped a short distance away, and several beings emerged. Studied them carefully. They were bipedal-like but taller and more solid. They had 2 arms and 2 legs. Their skin came in various shades of brown. They had hair on their heads and small eyes that faced forward. Forward-facing eyes. Felt a chill run through her body. In nature, prey animals had eyes on the sides of their heads to watch for danger from all directions. Predators had eyes facing forward to focus on their target. These beings were predators. A female approached. She was tall, with long dark hair and eyes that moved constantly, tracking everything around her. She walked with confidence, with no fear at all. Behind her came a male, broad and muscular, with a strange expression on his face. His lips were curved upward, showing teeth. His hand moved toward her weapon. Showing teeth was a threat display on most worlds. But the female raised one hand, palm outward. A greeting, perhaps. "Welcome to Earth," she said. A translator device converted her words into language. This is, we represent the United Nations of Earth. Earth, the name of their planet, tried to remain calm. "I am commander of the research vessel Whisper of Dawn," she replied. "We come in peace. We wish to learn about your world and your people." Smiled wider, more teeth. "We are happy to meet you. We have many questions. But first you must be tired from your journey. Please come with us. We have prepared a place for you to rest." Did not want to follow this predator anywhere. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to return to the shuttle, to fly back to the ship, to leave this terrible world behind. But she was a scientist. She was an explorer. And these beings had built a civilization on a planet that should have killed them. That alone made them worthy of study. "Thank you," said. "We accept your hospitality." As she walked toward the human vehicles, she looked up at the sky. The sun was bright and hot, even through her suit's filters. Clouds drifted past, heavy with the water that would soon fall. And 8 billion predators called it home. Had never been more frightened in her life. The humans took the delegation to a large building they called a university. It was a place of learning, they explained. A place where humans studied everything from tiny particles to distant stars. Found this interesting. Her own people valued knowledge greatly. Perhaps humans were not so different after all. But she was wrong. Humans were very different. Their guide was a female scientist named. She was smaller than, with shorter hair and round glasses on her face. She smiled often and spoke quickly, her excitement clear in every word. She studied alien life, she explained. They were her first real aliens. She had many questions. Had questions too. "How do you survive here?" she asked as they walked through a long corridor. "Our sensors show that your planet is extremely dangerous. The radiation alone should cause serious harm." Laughed. It was a strange sound, short and sharp. Had learned that humans laughed when something was funny. She did not understand what was funny about her question. "We adapted," said simply. "Our bodies learned to handle it over millions of years. We have skin that protects us from the sun. We have systems inside us that fix damage. We are tough." Tough, the word seemed too small for what was hearing. They entered a large room with screens on every wall, touched some buttons and images appeared. Old images, images of early humans. "You want to understand us," said. "Let me show you where we came from." The images showed creatures that looked similar to modern humans, but more primitive. They had less clothing and carried simple weapons made of stone and wood. They lived in a land of tall grass and scattered trees. "This is called a savanna," explained. "Our ancestors lived here. It was full of dangerous animals. Lions, leopards, hyenas, all of them were faster than us, stronger than us. They had claws and teeth made for killing." "How did your ancestors survive?" asked. He had joined the tour, unable to stay on the ship while such discoveries were being made. "We hunted them," said. His tentacles went stiff. "You hunted predators." "Yes, and we hunted prey animals too, deer, antelope, wild pigs, but here is the interesting part." Changed the image. It showed a group of early humans running across the savanna. "We were not fast enough to catch most animals in a short chase, so we did not chase them in a short way. We followed them. Followed, repeated. Hours, sometimes for entire days. You see, most animals cannot sweat like humans can. When they run, their bodies heat up. They must stop to cool down, but humans can sweat. We can keep our bodies cool while we move. So we would follow an animal walking and jogging, never letting it rest. The animal would run away. We would follow. It would run again. We would follow again. Eventually, after hours or days, the animal would collapse from exhaustion, and then we would simply walk up to it and kill it. The room was silent. Felt the horror of this image sink into her mind. She pictured it clearly. A desperate animal running for its life again and again, looking back to see the humans still coming. Always coming, never stopping, never giving up. "You call this persistence hunting," she said. "Yes," confirmed. "And it worked. We became the top predators on our planet, not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we never stopped." Made a small sound of distress. "Do you still hunt this way?" Smiled. "Not for food. We have other ways to get food now, but we still run. Many humans run for fun. We have events called marathons where thousands of people run over 40 kilometers, just for enjoyment." "That is insane," whispered. "Perhaps," agreed, "but it is who we are." She showed them more images. Humans climbing tall mountains covered in ice and snow. Humans diving deep underwater where the pressure would crush most life forms. Humans sailing across vast oceans on small wooden boats, not knowing if they would ever find land again. "Your species seeks out danger," observed. "We are curious," said. "We want to know what is on the other side of the mountain, what is under the water, what is beyond the horizon. If there is a challenge, we want to face it. If there is something difficult, we want to try." The door to the room opened. A male human entered. He was tall and moved with a careful, controlled grace that made instincts scream. Every step was precise. Every movement was efficient. He wasted no energy. This was how a predator moved when it did not fear anything. "This is," said. "He is part of our security team. He will help protect you during your stay." "Protect them," almost laughed. If anything went wrong, she knew exactly who she would be afraid of, and it was not any external threat. "Hello," said. His voice was calm and deep. "Welcome to Earth. If you need anything, please ask." "Thank you," managed to say. She looked at him more closely. He was young by human standards, perhaps 30 years old, but there was something in his eyes that seemed much older, a steadiness, an awareness. He knew exactly where everyone in the room was standing. He had probably noted every exit, every potential weapon, every possible threat. And yet he smiled politely and offered to help them. Was beginning to understand something about humans. They were predators, yes, the most successful predators their world had ever produced, but they were also social creatures. They formed groups. They worked together. They protected each other. And apparently, they were willing to extend that protection to alien visitors. She did not know if this made her feel better or worse. "Tell me about your predators," she asked. "You mentioned lions and leopards. Do they still exist?" "Yes," said. "Though their numbers are smaller than they once were, we try to protect them now." "Protect them?" "Yes, we have places called zoos and reserves where they can live safely." Stared at her. "You protect the creatures that hunted your ancestors." "They are part of our world," said, as if this explained everything. "We do not want them to disappear." Leaned close to. "Commander," he whispered, "I am beginning to think that humans are not just physically dangerous. I think they might be psychologically unpredictable as well." Nodded slowly. She had come to the same conclusion. Humans were endurance predators who never stopped pursuing their prey. They climbed impossible mountains and crossed deadly oceans for curiosity. They protected the very creatures that had once tried to eat them. Nothing about them made sense. And yet, somehow, they had survived and thrived on a world that should have killed them 10,000 times over. Realized she would need to study these creatures very carefully, not just for science, but for survival, because if humans ever decided that they were a threat, she did not think there was anywhere in the galaxy they could hide. The humans would follow, they would always follow. And they would never ever stop. The formal dinner was held in a great hall with tall windows that looked out over a garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful, admitted to herself. Deadly, but beautiful. The delegation sat on one side of a long table. The human delegation sat on the other. Between them there was food, many kinds of food. Some of it was still steaming. Looked at what the humans were eating and felt her stomach turn. Meat, cooked animal flesh, vegetables torn from the ground, bread made from crushed plant seeds, and they were drinking a red liquid that had called wine, which was apparently made by letting fruit rot in a controlled way. They ate nutrient paste from sealed containers. It was safe. It was clean. It did not require the death of other creatures. "Is the food not to your liking?" asked the human sitting across from. He was an older male with hair and kind eyes. His name was, and he was the senior ambassador. "We prefer simpler food," said carefully. "Our digestive systems are different from yours." Nodded with understanding. "Of course, we should have asked about your dietary needs. I apologize." Was surprised by this. The apology seemed genuinely concerned that he might have made her uncomfortable. "It is not a problem," she said. "We came prepared." She watched the humans eat. They used tools called forks and knives to cut their food into smaller pieces. They talked while they ate, laughing and smiling at each other. There was no tension, no hierarchy that she could see. Junior staff spoke freely with senior officials. Young people joked with old people. A female named, who appeared to be a junior diplomat, touched his arm briefly while making a point. He smiled at her and nodded. There was no formal acknowledgement of rank, no ritual of submission. "You are very casual with each other," observed. "We are colleagues," said. "Friends even, we work together every day. Why would we be formal? On our world, there are strict rules about how different ranks interact." Tilted his head. "That sounds lonely." Lonely? Had never thought of it that way. Social rules existed to maintain order, to ensure smooth functioning of society. But humans seem to function well without such rigid structures. "You form attachments easily," she said. "Very easily," admitted. "Humans bond. It is perhaps our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. We form connections with each other, with animals, with—" He paused, searching for words. "With almost anything, really. Give a human enough time and they will develop feelings for a rock if it has an interesting shape." That cannot be literal. It is surprisingly literal. We name our vehicles. We feel sad when our favorite tools break. Astronauts have been known to feel emotional about robots that were never designed to return to Earth. Did not understand this at all. Objects were objects. They did not have feelings. They could not return affection. What was the purpose of caring about them? But she filed this information away for later study. It might be important. After dinner, offered to show her the garden. The sun had fully set now and the sky was dark and filled with stars. Felt more comfortable in the darkness. It reminded her of her. They walked along a stone path between flowering plants. Small insects flew through the air, making soft sounds. It was peaceful. "May I ask you something?" said. "Of course." "What do you really think of us? I can see that we frighten you, all of you." Was quiet for a moment. She appreciated his honesty, so she decided to return it. "You are predators," she said. "Everything about your biology marks you as hunters. Your forward-facing eyes, your teeth, the way you move. And your world," she looked up at the stars. "Your world should have killed you, it should have killed everything, but you survived. You did not just survive, you conquered it. You became the dominant species on a Class 12. That is terrifying." Was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "I understand, I do. We must seem like monsters to you." "Not monsters," said carefully, "but dangerous, very dangerous." "We can be," admitted. "Humans have done terrible things to each other throughout our history. We have the capacity for great violence." He paused. "But we also have the capacity for great love, great compassion, great sacrifice." Before could respond, she heard a sound from across the garden. A small human child was playing near a bench. She was perhaps 8 years old, with short black hair and a bright yellow dress. In her arms was a small furry creature with pointed ears and a long tail. "What is that animal?" asked. "A cat," said, "a domestic pet." Studied it. The creature had forward-facing eyes, retractable claws, and sharp teeth. It was clearly a predator, even if a small one. "That is a predator," she said, "and your child is holding it. Her name is, she is very gentle." A female adult approached, the child's mother. Her name was, and she smiled at the scene. "Say hello to our guests," told her daughter. The child looked up. She was not afraid of the aliens at all. She waved with one hand while holding the cat with the other. "This is," announced proudly, "she is my best friend." Watch the cat. It looked at her with ancient, calculating eyes. This was a killer, a small one but still a killer. It could blind the child with one swipe of its claws. But the child held it against her chest and called it her best friend. "The cat could hurt her," said quietly too. "Would never hurt. They have known each other since was a kitten. They are bonded." There was that word again, bonded. Watched the child carry the predator back toward the building, chattering happily to it about things only a child would find important. The cat relaxed in her arms, content to be carried. "You took predators into your homes," said slowly. "You looked at creatures that could kill you and decided they would be your companions." "Dogs first," said. "Wolves, actually. Thousands of years ago we formed an alliance with wolves. We hunted together. We protected each other. Over time they became dogs, our loyal partners." "You allied with wolves?" "Yes." "Thought about this. Wolves were pack hunters on Earth, dangerous, intelligent, and efficient, and ancient humans had looked at them and thought, friend. It was insane. It was completely, utterly insane. And yet somehow it was also wonderful." She understood now. Humans did not just bond with each other. They bonded with other species. They pulled creatures into their social circles and protected them, cared for them, loved them. If humans could love wolves and cats, could they love too? For the first time since landing on this world, felt a small spark of hope. Maybe these predators were not enemies. Maybe they could be allies. Maybe they could be friends. She just had to make sure the Never gave them a reason to turn their hunting instincts toward her people. Because she had seen how humans bonded. She suspected they hunted with the same intensity. 3 days had passed since they landed on Earth. 3 days of meetings, tour, and careful observation. Had learned much about humans, but she felt she was still missing something important. She decided to request access to their historical archives. The humans agreed immediately. This surprised her. Most species guarded their history carefully. They controlled what outsiders could see. They hid their shameful moments and highlighted their glories. Humans, it seemed, did not do this. "We believe in transparency," explained. "If you want to understand us, you should see all of us, the good and the bad." And were given a private room with access to Earth's historical databases. They started reading. They did not stop for a long time. The first files were about war. Humans had been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. Thousands of years of conflict. Millions of lives lost. The reasons for war varied, from disputes over land and resources to disagreements about ideas and beliefs. Sometimes there seemed to be no reason at all. "They kill each other," whispered, his tentacles pressed flat against his body. "Constantly, endlessly." Read on. She saw images of ancient battles fought with swords and spears. She saw images of modern battles fought with machines that could destroy entire cities. She saw the numbers, the terrible, impossible numbers. One war fought less than a century ago had killed 60 million humans. 60 million. The number was so large that could not truly understand it. And then she found the files about nuclear weapons. They created devices that could destroy all life on their planet, said. His voice was hollow. And they used them. They dropped them on cities filled with civilians. 2 cities, hundreds of thousands of dead in an instant. And afterwards, said, reading further, they built more of them, thousands more, enough to destroy their world many times over. They could have killed themselves, said, completely. They came close several times. Found records of something called the Cold War. For decades, 2 groups of humans had pointed nuclear weapons at each other. They had built systems that could launch all their weapons in minutes. They had come within seconds of ending their species. But they had not done it. Somehow they had stopped themselves. They are insane, concluded. There is no other explanation. But was not so sure. She kept reading. She found stories of soldiers who had jumped on explosives to protect their friends. They had known they would die. They did it anyway. She found stories of medics who ran toward danger to save the wounded. She found stories of people who had refused to surrender even when victory was impossible. And she found something else, something that changed her understanding of humans completely. During their worst wars, when death surrounded them, humans had still created beauty. They had written poetry in trenches filled with mud and blood. They had played music in bombed cities. They had fallen in love, married, and had children even when tomorrow was not guaranteed. They were not just creatures of destruction. They were creatures of stubborn, impossible hope. The door opened, and a young human male entered. He was wearing a military uniform, and there was a scar running along his jaw. His name was, and he was assigned to the security team. "Finding everything you need?" he asked. Looked at him. He was young, perhaps 25, but there was a weight in his eyes that did not match his age. "You have been in war," she said. It was not a question. Was quiet for a moment. "Yes, several years ago, a conflict in a region far from here." "Were you injured?" He touched the scar on his jaw. Yes, an explosion. I was lucky, others were not." "Why did you fight?" Considered the question. "Because I believed it was right, because others needed help, because," he paused, "because I was trained to run toward danger, not away from it." "Toward danger, of course." "Does it affect you?" asked. "What you saw, what you did?" "Every day," admitted. "I still dream about it sometimes, but I do not regret it. I would do it again if I had to." Studied him. This was a young man who had seen terrible things. He carried those memories with him always. And yet, here he was, politely checking on alien visitors, offering to help them however he could. "Your species should not exist," said quietly. Laughed. It was a strange sound, warm despite everything. "We get that a lot," he said, "but here we are still going." He left them alone again, returned to the archives. She read about diseases that had killed half of humanity. They had rebuilt. She read about ice ages that had pushed them to the edge of extinction. They had survived. She read about asteroids that had struck their planet and blocked out the sun for years. They had endured. And through it all, they had kept moving forward. She found their space program. Humans had looked up at the stars and decided to visit them. They had strapped themselves to controlled explosions and launched themselves into the void. Their early spacecraft were barely functional. Many had failed. Astronauts had died. They kept launching more. They had walked on their moon. They had sent machines to every planet in their system. They had built a space station where humans lived in the emptiness between worlds. And they were not done. They were planning missions to other stars, journeys that would take generations. They did not care that they would not live to see the destination. They wanted to go anyway. Finished his own reading and floated over to. "Commander," he said, "I have completed my analysis. Tell me." Humans are persistent predators who never stop pursuing their goals. They have survived every catastrophe their world has thrown at them. They have survived catastrophes they created themselves. They form powerful social bonds that give them incredible motivation. And they have a psychological trait that I can only describe as determined insanity. Determined insanity. They know something is dangerous. They know it might kill them. They do it anyway, not from ignorance, from choice. They choose to face the danger because they want to see what is on the other side. Nodded slowly. That matched everything she had observed. "What is your recommendation?" she asked. Membranes flickered. "Commander, I recommend we never give these creatures a reason to consider us enemies, because if we do, they will come for us, and they will not stop until one of us is destroyed." Looked back at the screen. Images of human history filled the display: war and peace, death and birth, destruction and creation. A species that had almost destroyed itself 100 times but had always pulled back from the edge. A species that faced impossible odds and refused to accept defeat. A species that looked at the darkness between stars and saw not danger but possibility. She thought of Young with his jaw and his terrible memories, still smiling, still serving, still willing to run toward danger to help others. Determined insanity indeed. 1 week had passed. The delegation had studied humans carefully. They had observed, recorded, and analyzed everything they could. Now it was time to return to their ship and prepare their report for the Galactic Council. Commander stood in the departure hall of the human facility. Around her, the members of both delegations had gathered to say goodbye. The atmosphere was strange. When they had arrived, they had been terrified of these creatures. Now realized she would miss them. Ambassador approached her with a small box in his hands. "A gift," he said, "something to remember us by." Opened the box carefully. Inside was a small device with a screen. "It contains music," explained. "Human music from many different cultures and time periods. We thought you might enjoy it." Music, organized sounds that humans created for emotional effect, had heard some during her visit. It had affected her more than she expected. "Thank you," she said. "I will treasure it." Smiled, that familiar expression that showed teeth, no longer found it threatening. "Commander," said, "I hope your report to your council will be favorable." "I do not know what my report will say," admitted honestly. "Your species is complicated." "That is a fair assessment." The junior diplomat came forward to say goodbye too. They had spent many hours together discussing science. Despite their physical differences, they had become something like friends. "I hope you will return someday," said Tu. "There is still so much to show you." His tentacles shifted in what recognized as embarrassment. "I would like that," he admitted. The security officer stood nearby. He nodded respectfully too. "Safe travels, Commander," he said. "The universe is large, but you are always welcome here." Welcome among predators, somehow believed him. The shuttle ride back to the Whisper of Dawn was quiet, and sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Below them, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just a blue marble against the black emptiness of space. 8 billion predators lived on that marble. 8 billion persistent hunters who had conquered their impossible world and were now reaching for the stars. The galaxy would never be the same. Back on the ship, began preparing her report. She sat alone in her quarters, organizing her thoughts. The Galactic Council needed to understand what humanity was. They needed to understand the threat and the opportunity. But how could she explain something so complex? She decided to start with the facts. Humans were endurance predators. Their ancestors had hunted by following prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. This trait had given them incredible stamina and determination. They never stopped pursuing their goals. Humans lived on a class 12. They breathed toxic oxygen, drank acidic water, and thrived under intense radiation. Their environment had made them tough, adaptable, and resourceful. Humans formed powerful social bonds. They bonded with each other, with other species, and even with inanimate objects. This trait made them loyal, cooperative, and emotionally motivated. They would sacrifice themselves for those they loved. Humans had a history of violence. They had fought countless wars among themselves. They had developed weapons capable of destroying their entire world. They had come close to extinction by their own hands. But humans also had a history of survival. They had overcome every challenge their world had presented. They had survived diseases, ice ages, and asteroid impacts. They had recovered from devastating wars and rebuilt their civilizations. They refused to accept defeat. And humans were expanding. They had already reached their moon. They were planning missions to other planets and even other stars. Soon, they would encounter other species in the galaxy. The question was, what would happen then? Thought about all the humans she had met. The diplomat with tracking eyes, who had welcomed them with open arms. The scientist, whose enthusiasm for knowledge was infectious. The ambassador, who spoke of love and compassion, even while acknowledging human capacity for violence. The security officer, who moved like a predator but offered protection. The junior diplomat, who had befriended an alien scientist without hesitation. And her daughter, who kept a small predator as a beloved pet. The young soldier, who carried terrible memories but still chose hope. These were not monsters. They were people. Strange, dangerous, beautiful people who had built a civilization on a world that should have killed them. Made her decision. She opened a communication channel to the Galactic Council. "This is Commander of the research vessel Whisper of Dawn," she said. "I am ready to deliver my report on the species known as humans." The council chair responded, "We are listening, Commander. What is your classification?" Looked at the data on her screen, charts and graphs and statistics. None of it captured the truth. "Humans are the ultimate predator," she said. "Not because they are the strongest, not because they are the fastest or the most armored. They are the ultimate predator because they never stop. They adapt to any environment. They overcome any obstacle. They form bonds that make them willing to die for each other. And they see impossible challenges not as barriers but as invitations." The council was silent. "They are dangerous," continued. "More dangerous than any species I have ever studied. If humanity decides that the galaxy is a threat, they will mobilize against it with all the determination and ferocity that has marked their entire existence. They will not stop until they have won or died trying." "Your recommendation?" the council chair asked. "Thought about's gift, music, sound organized into patterns of emotion, beauty created for no practical purpose except to make others feel something." She thought about Little holding her cat and calling it her best friend. She thought about soldiers jumping on explosives to save their companions. She thought about poets writing in trenches and lovers marrying during wars. "Friendship," said, "I recommend friendship. These beings have the capacity for great destruction, yes, but they also have the capacity for great love. They extend their protection to anything they bond with, anything. If we become their friends, they will fight for us as fiercely as they fight for each other." She paused. "And I do not want to discover what happens if we become their enemies." The council discussed among themselves. Finally, the chair spoke again. "Your recommendation is noted, Commander. We will consider it carefully." The communication ended. Leaned back in her chair, she looked at the small music device had given her. She activated it. Strange sounds filled her quarters. A human voice singing, instruments playing in harmony. The melody was beautiful and sad and hopeful all at once. She did not understand the words, but she understood the feeling. Somewhere below, on a blue marble spinning through space, 8 billion humans were going about their day. They were eating and sleeping and working and playing. They were falling in love and raising children and dreaming of the stars. They did not know they were being judged by an ancient galactic civilization. They did not know that their fate hung in the balance. And even if they had suspected, they would not have been afraid. They would have looked up at the stars and smiled. Because that was who they were. They were humans. And the universe had better be ready for them.